My name is Olivia Hartwell. The moment my father raised his glass during the company's year-end meeting and declared that the future of the company was in the right hands, I smiled. At the time, I had no idea that I had spent more than a decade of my life building a dream that was never meant to be mine. Some betrayals arrive without warning. Others are carefully planned years in advance. The only difference is that the person being betrayed never sees them coming. I was 36 years old. I lived in Charleston, a coastal city known for its historic cobblestone streets and homes that seemed to carry the colors of another era. From the outside, most people thought I was a successful woman, the chief operations officer of Hartwell Living, one of the fastest-growing luxury furniture brands in the American South. What they did not know was that everything I had achieved came at the cost of years of sacrifice for my family. 11 years earlier, the company had been standing on the edge of bankruptcy. Loans were coming due. Business partners were pulling out. Revenue was collapsing. While people my age were building careers of their own, I walked away from a promising position at a major corporation and returned home to save my parents' business. I still remember that day vividly. My father sat alone in a dark office. Stacks of debt files covered his desk. He looked at me and said, "If you do not help this family now, everything will be over." I agreed immediately. Not because of money, not because of a title, but because I believed family was the most important thing in the world. From that day forward, my life revolved entirely around the company. I arrived at the office before sunrise. I left after the city lights had already come on. There were weeks when I worked 7 days straight, months when I barely took a single day off. I taught myself supply chain management. I negotiated directly with vendors. I found new clients on my own. Every major contract the company secured carried my fingerprints somewhere in the process. Yet whenever praise came our way, my father was always the one standing in the spotlight. I never complained, because he always said the same thing. One day, all of this will be yours. That promise kept me going for more than a decade. Meanwhile, my younger sister Chloe lived a completely different life. She was 5 years younger than me. Beautiful, outgoing, always the center of attention at every party. Chloe loved traveling more than working. She preferred tropical beaches to boardroom meetings. Whenever she showed up at the company, she stayed for a few hours and then disappeared. But my mother always defended her. "She is still young. Let her enjoy her life." I heard those words so many times I could practically recite them from memory. What was strange was that whenever the company faced a crisis, I was always the one they called, never Chloe. I was the problem solver. The one who fixed mistakes, the person standing behind every success, but never the one invited onto the stage. There was one secret that not even my family cared about. Before returning to Charleston, I had another dream. I wanted to become a photographer. I used to spend hours wandering through the city, chasing the light that spilled across its historic streets. I saved money to open a small photography gallery of my own. Then the company fell into crisis, and that dream was folded away. I kept telling myself I would return to it someday, just a little longer, just until the company became stable, just until my family no longer needed me. But the years kept passing, and I remained exactly where I was. Until that autumn. The year Hartwell Living began preparing for its 40th anniversary celebration. The entire company was excited. Guests were flying in from all over the country. Major shareholders confirmed their attendance. And for the first time in many years, my father walked into my office wearing a proud smile. He placed a hand on my shoulder. His eyes were shining. Then he said, "Olivia, that night is going to change the future of this company forever." I looked at him. My heart began to beat faster. After more than 10 years of dedication, I truly believed that my moment had finally arrived. What I did not know was that the very same night would reveal the biggest secret my family had been hiding for years. The final weeks leading up to the anniversary celebration passed in a strange atmosphere. The entire company was busy. Departments worked late into the night. Employees rushed back and forth between meetings and rehearsal sessions. Olivia, meanwhile, barely had a single day off. Every detail of the event had to go through her, from the guest list to the program schedule, to the final sponsorship agreements. Everyone thought it was perfectly normal. After all, Olivia had long become the person standing behind every success at Hartwell Living. One afternoon, just a few days before the event, the company's new chief financial officer stepped into her office. He smiled. "Congratulations in advance." Olivia looked up. "For what?" The man laughed. "Come on, the whole company already knows. After all these years, you're finally getting what you deserve." Olivia did not ask another question. But after the door closed behind him, her heart began to race. Maybe everyone was thinking the same thing she was. Maybe this was finally the moment her father would fulfill the promise he had made all those years ago. For the first time in a very long time, she allowed herself to hope. On the night of the celebration, the Riverside Hotel in Charleston glowed like a palace. Crystal chandeliers reflected light across polished marble floors. Soft music drifted through the grand ballroom. Major shareholders, longtime business partners, some of the most respected entrepreneurs in the region. Everyone was there. Olivia stood among the crowd. Her dark blue dress made her stand out more than usual. One employee after another approached to shake her hand. "Congratulations, Olivia. No one deserves this more than you. We've known this was coming for years." Those words touched her deeply, not because of a title, but because it finally felt like all those years of sacrifice had been recognized. Across the ballroom, Chloe appeared in a stunning designer gown. She laughed and chatted with guests like a celebrity walking a red carpet. Olivia glanced at her sister. A strange feeling flickered inside her. Then it disappeared. When the opening ceremony began, Richard Hartwell stepped onto the stage. Applause echoed throughout the room. He began speaking about the company's history, the struggles, the crises, the victories. Olivia sat quietly below, listening. Then suddenly, her father shifted the topic toward the future. He smiled. "Tonight is not only a celebration of 40 years, it is also the beginning of a new chapter for Hartwell Living." The entire ballroom fell silent. Olivia tightened her hands together. Her heartbeat became so loud she could almost hear it. Richard looked toward the front rows. Then he spoke with unmistakable pride. "I would like to introduce the new Chief Executive Officer of Hartwell Living, my daughter, Chloe Hartwell." For a single second, Olivia thought she had misheard him. Then the applause exploded like thunder. People rose to their feet. The spotlight landed directly on Chloe. She walked onto the stage wearing a radiant smile, accepted a bouquet from her father, embraced her mother, and waved to hundreds of guests. Meanwhile, Olivia sat frozen in place. The smile slowly faded from her face. No one noticed that moment. The moment when more than 10 years of sacrifice collapsed in a matter of seconds. But the most painful part was still ahead. After the ceremony, Olivia left the ballroom to get some air. She walked down the hallway behind the VIP section. That was when a familiar voice drifted from a room near the end of the corridor. Her mother's voice. "She won't suspect a thing." Another voice answered. "Richard, she never suspects anything." Olivia stopped walking. Instinct kept her frozen in place. Through a partially open door, she saw her parents and the family attorney. A stack of documents lay across the table. Richard laughed. "Good thing we transferred all the shares to Chloe years ago. Otherwise, this would have been much more complicated." Linda nodded. Olivia has always been the responsible one. She would do anything for her family. Soft laughter filled the room, but to Olivia, every word felt like a blade cutting through her chest. Transferred the shares years ago. That meant every promise made over the past decade had been a lie. That meant every late night, every personal savings account she emptied to rescue the company, every piece of her personal life she sacrificed, had never mattered. The decision had already been made long ago. She was never the heir. She was simply the person assigned to keep the ship from sinking. Olivia took a step backward, then another. No one noticed her standing outside the room. No one realized that her entire world had just shattered. But instead of crying, instead of storming inside and demanding answers, something else began to form. Clarity, coldness, determination. For the first time in her life, Olivia was not thinking about how to save her family. She was thinking about uncovering the entire truth. And deep down, she understood one thing. If they had managed to hide this secret for years, then there were almost certainly other secrets still waiting to be uncovered. That night, while everyone raised their glasses to celebrate the new CEO, Olivia returned to her office alone. She turned on her computer, logged into the company's old archive system, and began following the first trail of clues. She had no idea what she was about to find. But something deep inside told her that what happened at the celebration was only the beginning. The next morning, Charleston woke up as if nothing had happened. Local newspapers featured photos of Chloe Hartwell standing on stage with a radiant smile. Articles praising the new generation of leadership appeared one after another. Social media comments overflowed with congratulations. From the outside, everything looked perfect. But inside an office on the 12th floor of Hartwell Living, Olivia was seeing a completely different picture. She had barely slept all night, not because she was heartbroken, but because of the questions. Too many questions. If all the shares had been transferred to Chloe years ago, why had her father continued promising her an inheritance? If everything had been arranged in advance, how many other things did she still not know? And most importantly, who had truly benefited from all the years she had sacrificed? Olivia started with the old records, financial reports, loan agreements, board meeting minutes, thousands of files stored deep within the company's archives. For years, she had managed the day-to-day operations. Yet she had never been given access to certain shareholder documents. Now things were different. She knew exactly where to look. 3 days later, an unexpected name surfaced in her mind: Nathan Brooks, the former chief financial officer, the man who had left the company nearly 6 years earlier. At the time, everyone had said he retired early because of health concerns, but Olivia remembered something very clearly. Nathan had a fierce argument with her father shortly before he disappeared. That afternoon, she drove to a small town nearly 2 hours from Charleston. Nathan lived in a modest lakeside house. He opened the door and took a few seconds to recognize her. Olivia, it has been a long time. After a few brief pleasantries, Olivia got straight to the point. Why did you leave? Nathan remained silent. He stared across the lake for a long moment. Then he smiled faintly. So you finally started asking questions? The answer sent a chill through Olivia. Nathan had never retired. He had been forced out. The reason was simple. He opposed the Hartwell family's decision to transfer company assets to Chloe when Olivia was the person responsible for creating most of the company's actual value. Your father didn't want to hear that, Nathan said. He decided a long time ago who his successor would be, and you were simply the one keeping the business alive. Olivia felt her throat tighten, but Nathan was not finished. He stood up, walked into his study, then returned carrying an old storage box. I always thought there might come a day when you would need these. Inside were copies of dozens of emails, private meeting records, internal agreements, documents Olivia had never seen before. Each page revealed a truth more disturbing than the one before it. The personal investments she had made years earlier had been recorded as family contributions. The loans she personally guaranteed had been reported under Richard Hartwell's name. Projects she built from the ground up had been credited to Chloe in internal company records. For more than a decade, they had not only used her labor, they had systematically erased her name from every success she created. That evening, Olivia sat alone in her office. Documents covered the entire desk. She stared at the numbers, the signatures, the email exchanges, and for the first time, she realized something. Hartwell Living should have gone bankrupt years ago. There had been at least 3 separate moments when the company stood on the edge of complete collapse, and every single time, Olivia was the one who saved it. Not Richard, not Chloe, Olivia. Her hand tightened around the folder. A different feeling began to emerge. No longer pain, no longer disappointment, but absolute clarity. For years, she had believed the power belonged to her father. Now she understood the truth. The person who held the real power had never been Richard Hartwell. The person who generated revenue. The person who retained key clients. The person who rescued critical contracts. The person employees trusted most was her, Olivia Hartwell, the woman her own family had always treated like a shadow. The next morning, she continued gathering evidence. Each new document made the picture clearer. Then she found the most important piece of all. A board meeting record from years earlier. Buried within it was a single sentence. If Olivia Hartwell leaves the company, the risk of losing liquidity within 12 months is extremely high. Olivia read the sentence over and over. A faint smile appeared on her face, for the first time in days, not because she was happy, but because she finally understood the truth. Her family had never been as strong as they pretended to be. They were only strong because she had been standing behind them. And if that truth ever came to light, everything they had spent years building could collapse in a very short time. Olivia closed the folder, looked out at the illuminated buildings beyond her office window. Below, the city continued moving as if nothing had changed. But she knew better. A storm was coming, and this time, the person controlling that storm would not be the Hartwell family, it would be her. 3 weeks after the anniversary celebration, no one in Charleston spoke about the Hartwell family with admiration anymore. The articles that once praised Chloe had disappeared from the front pages. In their place came questions, doubts, and a series of emergency meetings within the company. It all began at the annual shareholders meeting. A meeting Richard Hartwell believed would strengthen Chloe's position after her grand introduction as the company's new leader. He had prepared a speech, prepared a strategy, prepared for everything, except Olivia. Nearly an hour into the meeting, the doors to the conference hall suddenly opened. Olivia walked in, calm, confident, carrying a thick folder in her hands. Heads turned. Several shareholders exchanged surprised glances. Richard frowned slightly. He had no idea what his daughter was about to do. But within minutes, he began to understand. Olivia did not raise her voice. She did not accuse anyone. She did not demand anything. She simply presented the truth. One document after another was distributed to every shareholder. Copies of contracts, internal emails, financial reports, no emotion, no judgment, only facts. The room slowly grew silent. The faces that had once been smiling began to change. Some shareholders flipped through the pages repeatedly. Others removed their glasses to read more carefully. The more they read, the heavier the atmosphere became. Then one of the largest shareholders stood up. He looked directly at Richard. Is it true that every loan that saved this company was personally guaranteed by Olivia? Richard did not answer immediately. The silence lasted only a few seconds, but those few seconds were enough. Another shareholder spoke. Is it true that many of the achievements credited to Chloe were actually managed by Olivia? Another silence followed. This time, Chloe could no longer maintain her smile. Things were beginning to slip out of control. For years, the Hartwell family had built a perfect story, but all it took was one truth, and that story began to crack. The meeting ended in chaos. Several shareholders demanded a full internal investigation. Some board members called for a review of Chloe's appointment. Strategic partners began making phone calls. Investors demanded explanations, and for the first time in many years, Richard Hartwell was no longer the person controlling the room. 3 days later, the news spread beyond the company. Not because Olivia leaked it, but because people inside the organization did. Truth has a strange habit. When it is hidden for too long, it usually finds its own way into the light. New articles began appearing. More questions were asked. And the deeper people looked, the more they discovered. 1 week later, the board voted to suspend Chloe's executive authority. 2 weeks later, several senior executives submitted their resignations. 1 month later, the company's value had dropped significantly. The empire Richard had spent decades building was beginning to shake. Meanwhile, Olivia almost disappeared from the controversy entirely. She stayed away from the media. She declined interviews. She refused to participate in any public battle. Instead, she did one thing. She resigned. The day Olivia left Hartwell Living, a light rain fell over Charleston. Employees lined the hallways to say goodbye. Some hugged her, some cried, because they understood who had truly kept the company alive all those years. Olivia carried only a small box. No trophies, no assets, no title, just a few personal belongings. and the old camera that had been sitting in a drawer for more than 10 years. 3 months later, Olivia moved to Portland, a city where nobody knew her name, nobody cared about the Hartwell family, nobody expected her to carry other people's burdens. For the first time in many years, she was finally living for herself. She returned to photography, rented a small studio, worked part-time jobs, and slowly began building a new life. It was not easy, but it was peaceful. One autumn afternoon, while preparing for her first photography exhibition, her phone suddenly rang. The caller's name appeared on the screen, Richard Hartwell. After a few seconds of silence, Olivia answered. Her father's voice sounded older than she remembered. "The company is struggling. We need you." Olivia looked around at the photographs hanging on the walls, photographs she had taken herself, moments that belonged to her life, not someone else's. Then she quietly asked, "Do you need me? Or do you only need what I can do for you?" Silence filled the other end of the line. That silence answered everything. Olivia smiled. For the first time in years, it was a smile free from weight and obligation. She wished her father well, then ended the call. No anger, no resentment, just the closing of an old chapter. 1 year later, Olivia's first photography exhibition became a remarkable success. Near the entrance hung a large photograph, a sunrise along the Oregon coast. Beneath it was a simple title, "Starting Over." Many visitors stopped in front of that photograph, but none of them knew what it truly meant. Only Olivia understood. It was not a photograph about sunrise, it was a photograph about freedom. Because in the end, the most valuable thing she gained was not ownership of a company, not wealth, not recognition from her family. It was the chance to find herself again. And sometimes, the greatest victory is not watching the people who hurt you fail. It is building a happy life without ever needing their permission again.